Hi Mermaid Junkies, how are you? I'm glad that you're back. Today we are going to start talking about the basic of what I believe my foundation is. Everything stems from this and flows from this. It's self-love, which I created this quote called self-love, or that says self-love is the fountain from which everything flows from, which I truly believe that. So some of the things that I'm going to discuss today are discovering what self-love is. Because sometimes the perception is one thing when in actuality it's really another in the external perspective, but internally it's deriving from some other space and we can identify that. So I wanted to talk about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about in the next video will be about how and the steps that we can take to create that based on values and principles. Not just values or methods or tactics or tools. You should always have your values based in principle-centered learning, not only tactical things, methods, how you do certain things, because values will change, but principles will not. So I wanted to give a little metaphor, and I thought about this because obviously I'm a mermaid, so we do everything with metaphors and analogies and such. And I think it's a great way to teach. So this is the thought that came to me. I was thinking, I've had some people say to me in regards to, oh no, that person really, like from an external perspective, you're seeing someone and you think, oh no, they probably have self-love. Look how they keep themselves together. Look how they, work out all the time and they have such a great figure and they're in really great shape and they always have, nice makeup on and they look well dressed and groomed. I think that from an external perspective, to some people that may very well appear to be self-love, that they're showing self-love. But I'm going to give some external and internal. The internal are obviously the ways that we really have self-love. And basically the self-love, the encapsulating philosophy that I would love for you to take hold of this in this particular video is that self-love is your connection with your source or God. To me, he's a God. He's my God. But to other people, it could be in different ways. You might see it as, the universe or source or your higher self. So, but I tend to believe that it's God for me. That's my particular definition of source, okay? I'm going to give the internal, and these are the true ways that you have self-love. These are the things that appear to seem that you have self-love. And like I said, I wanted to go over this iceberg metaphor. And what we were talking about was, or what I was just describing is, I've heard that more times than not. People say, oh, well, obviously they must have self-love. Or have you ever been talking to someone or you say, you know what, you just need to love yourself and not focus on that or something of that nature. And people are like, oh no, I totally love myself. What do you mean? I totally love myself. And there's almost like this knee-jerk reaction to where when they say that, it's not internally based. It's not in the foundation and the core belief of who this person is. And you can kind of tell by body language because, if I said it in that way, like I just said it, it seems a little bit like I'm agitated that you would confront me on such an issue, that it's obvious I have self-love, right? Or they kind of like retreat back, like they're a little hesitant to like, yeah, I love myself. I'm a child of God. And a lot of times people will base their self-love on spiritual bypassing. Do you know what that is? Like spiritual bypassing is you were raised in maybe a religious home, so therefore you think, oh, well, my parents taught me I'm a child of God, or, I know that I believe in God. But there's a lot of people walking around, you guys, that don't have self-love. And the only reason that I can honestly and sincerely teach this and say this is because I was that exact prototype. I grew up in a very religious-based home, very, very highly motivated by my character building upon what I thought was the foundation of self-love. When in actuality, I realized as I got older and the more that I wasn't, I hadn't reached enlightenment, which I believe enlightenment is just recognizing that you and God are working in unison, like that's your purpose, and you have a desire to fulfill whatever your purpose is on earth. So that's the reason that I'm saying this and can speak so freely about it, is because I was that same way. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. My iceberg metaphor, which means that the eternal appearance of self-love is, like I said, someone that maybe someone works out, maybe they, look nice and they have a great figure, but that is not what true self-love is. That's based on an external appearance of an internal paradigm of what someone thinks something is. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, a paradigm is how I see the world, not how the world is, but how I perceive the world to be. And that's a package deal of how I grew up, what kind of belief system I grew up having, what my circumstances was, how I see life, how I view things, how I view other people, how people live their lives. And so that's my perspective of how things appear to be. That's my paradigm. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's how it really is. Okay? So I wanted to go through some things. So instead of talking about what self-love is, I guess I have kind of talked about that. I also want to talk about what it is not. So let's start here, okay? Body language. We kind of talked about that a little bit before the video stopped. Is that, you have this like knee-jerk reaction that, of course I love myself. And you wouldn't be so hasty. You would be a little bit more humble if you really did have self-love, okay? Fear-based. A lot of times when we don't have self-love, it's fear-based. It's based upon what someone else may have in comparison to what we don't have at that moment. It's like if they were to have all of this success and they were, they appeared to have it all together, then that means I'm not going to be able to have that. So everything's fear-based. Let's see what else. Okay, we judge people a lot. And I will speak from experience, is that, I was the prime example of like thinking that I had self-love when I really never, to be truthful and honest, I never had really dove deep into those internal understanding of what self-love is. And I had always just kind of assumed, or maybe not even thought about it, to be quite honest, because I thought the appearance of everything externally looked together and put together to me. I mean, I had spoken to you before. I was very, I had a very active lifestyle. I was in really good shape. I was really thin. I really ate healthy. I was well put together. I looked like I would fit the part perspective. But the truth of the matter is, when you're driven from that sense of external perspective of having self-love, everything is external. Nothing is internal. Everything is external. So it's the way that you see things, the way that you perceive, like, oh, she must have it all together and she must have a lot of self-love and care about herself a lot because she's thin and she's in shape and she works out all the time. When the truth of the matter is, that is the way that I would receive love when I was young, is that if I was thin and I was in shape and I was pretty and I looked good in a bathing suit, then I received love. But if I knew that I wasn't going to receive love based on what I appeared to look like on the outside, that is a survival mechanism. So it's not self-love, it's living in a fear-based reality of thinking that if I'm not this perfect person, then I'm not going to receive love, one of the basic human needs in existence. So, and I was on the verge of an eating disorder too. So that doesn't, appear on the external, if you can keep it underhand. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I hadn't gone over the edge in my mind, but just enough to where I could convince people that I don't have an eating disorder. What are you talking about? When the people that were truly next to me and near me and knew me knew that I did. Okay, you also have no desire to fix people. Like, well, if they only did this and this, and they followed this particular method of how I live my life, then they would be happy, or they would have self-love, or they would be able to do this. But see, once again, you're thinking outside of yourself, and you're wanting to fix something outside of yourself when we need to bring it back home and look inside. This isn't about trying to fix things on the outside, because when you're doing that, you're once again focusing on the external aspect of life. When we need to, it's all about inward. It's all about inward. And like I said, I was the biggest person to judge people. Like, one thing that I would always do is like, I'm not interested in fixing the relationship. I'm interested in talking about them and how they're not this, and have you seen this, and look at that, and how imperfect they are, and they do that. Can you believe that they do that? And then you have this jolly old time with all of these other people that will that don't have self-love as well, that will join in the favor of, like, collaborating on the negative welfare of someone else, which, once again, that's not what God would do, would he? Okay. The other thing, big one, big. This will be the downfall of many people in life, is we compare ourselves. Someone that doesn't have self-love constantly will focus on comparing themselves in some aspect or another against someone else. Someone of higher stature or someone of lower stature. You will always compare, and you will always say, well, at least I have this. They might have that, but at least I have this, right? Or it's this type of ladder of as to whether or not one person is better than the other person, because, they have a better blog than me, or they have more views on YouTube, or she's a better swimmer than me, and why does that mermaid get all of the attention? And you're always comparing yourself to other people. You're always finding a way to compare yourself. Like, yes, I understand that it's natural and human, but I'm going to give you a little quick analogy how that you can stop that, and you won't have these occurrences anymore with comparing yourself to other people. So the first one is self-love, but I'm going to give you another tactical method for getting rid of the comparison. Ursula Queen is what I like to call her. Okay? The last thing on this one is all of these things obviously are ego-based. It's not our true, authentic, transparent, eternal core being of who we are as people. It's based on all of our ego outside of ourselves, because true, authentic, being in touch with Source or God would not ever relish in that type of behavior. Okay, now we're going to talk about the internal things that we do have, okay? Spirit or intuition. A lot of people, especially in New Age, spirituality-based people that like to, we're all into, self-improvement and self-help and personal development. A lot of times we'll say, oh, well, it's your intuition, right? But I like to say that our intuition is really your spirit, because, you'll have these spiritual moments, which you think might go, oh, it was intuition, or it was my gut, right? But it's really the spirit. Everyone is given a spirit before they come to the earth, right? In premortal existence, before we came to earth as a mortal, we were all given a spirit. Everyone, no one was exempt. So the more you listen to your intuition or your spirit, the more the spirit will work in unison with you, because it's there as your guide. Because we all need guides, right? We all need to have something that we can hold on to that is our true internal self. This will be based on, it will tell you things to do, And if you listen to it, you will also notice too that if you have a question, like it will be a spurts of like thought, okay? And if it's negative and you're questioning it and it seems a little like, ugh, and you're like, you know, kind of cringing up against it, you might want to have to reevaluate that because it may be fear-based motive, which is not the spirit or your intuition. It is a fear-based thought process when you're going through that, right? Because our spirit doesn't have any angst. Our spirit doesn't have any kind of, there's no judgment or emotion attached to your spirit. You're going to either feel pangs or moments of a particular feeling, but it's not going to be based on emotions. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. If not, ask me in the comments. And that was another thing that I was talking about, the spirit, is the if it's lack of emotion, you know that it's a fear-based, conditioned based on your behavior of what you've learned, okay? When you have a paradigm shift and you can no longer look at things the way that they are, you look at things not as you see them, but as they really are. That I had a paradigm shift, and there's numerous stories out there about like paradigm shifts, especially if you're like an active consumer of anything Stephen Covey or the 7 Habits, you would understand, because a lot of this stuff is based on his philosophy, but I've kind of like learned more things in psychology and stuff like that that I do it my own way as far as coming to this realization of certain things. Well, no desire to fix people or compare ourselves to other people. We're just happy. We want everybody, even if they're making bad choices in their life, and that's our opinion, it's still their own journey, and they're allowed to be where they are right now. They're supposed to be there. They're supposed to be experiencing everything. Everything is rigged in our favor. Everything, even the negative things. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. Dogs were barking. The other thing that I was going to say is that you have sympathy and empathy for people. You really start to understand that it's not necessary for you to place judgment on what they're doing in their life, whether they're making bad choices or not. You just have really a completely like placid sense of feeling about it. You know, we know that we're all interconnected, and that we don't need to have to control something. We don't need to have to worry about fear, because in reality, that's not how Source or God handles things. He doesn't deal on a fear-based mentality. We're always willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. Always be loyal to those that aren't present. The other thing is that another part of the external of not having self-love, and that it's a clue, is that they're always thinking outside themselves, that's not the problem. It's always outside, it's out there, it's their problem, their issue. When in reality, it's really internally, like we need to look at ourselves. It's our problem, it's all of ours, because we're all interconnected, right? We're all a family. And the last one is that we respect the lives of those around us, whether they're doing what we think is like, oh, it may not be such a great lifestyle choice, but you respect the fact that they're doing it. You don't have any ill content or ill will towards them because they're not fitting the mold of how you think and perceive that their life should be. It has nothing to do with you. So I think a lot of times we want to take and adopt those particular feelings and put them on to other people and label them and keep them in a particular area and compartmentalize them so that we can feel better about ourselves. Okay, guys, so what I'd like you to do, I hope you took notes or wrote this stuff down or just bullet point. And I hope that described what the external and internal things of what self-love is and what it is not. And so along with those lines of discovering what this is, we're also next week going to talk about the things to do to discover how to have self-love. So I'm going to give you the tactical methods for actually how to implement these things into your life so that you can have self-love. And I hope you liked this video. Thumbs up if you did, and also share it, and sharing is caring. I'll talk to you soon. I'm yours until my next swim. Ciao.